Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And today I'm doing a live stream covering what I've been watching in the last month. Mostly I've been watching the last month of March. Now we're in the month of April. And I got quite a bit of movies and TV shows that I wanted to kind of talk about. I got Norn Rad here. Jason, the party began. Let the party begin. Yes. Thank you, Norn. In fact, I wanted to talk a little bit about you, Norn, uh, because I'm talking about some movies and TV shows that I've been watching. There's some other movies that I've been watching that I'm not going to really discuss in too much detail in this one, because I'm probably going to do another live stream or video discussing that. And one deals with Norn Rad 89. He's been watching a movie series called Puppet Master, which I forget the ones. I don't know if they came out in the 90s or 80s. It might have been 80s. I want to say it was like maybe started out in the 80s. Uh, Kind of a horror movie. I would call it like a B horror movie franchise. And I never heard of this, but Norrin recently bought this like 14 Blu-ray set. It has like 14 movies, which is crazy. I think there's even more than that. I think they just came out with another Puppet Master, but there's like 14 movies in the Puppet Master series. I mean, which is pretty crazy. And so Norton's been going through them chronologically from the first one to now. He's kind of getting somewhat towards the end of the list. Anyway, so I don't know. I was like, when he started this Puppet Master thing, I'm like, Puppet Master, this kind of a crazy idea. But he's so enthusiastic about it. And I happened to see a Puppet Master. One of them is on, I think Puppet Master 5. I think it's Puppet Master 5 was on YouTube for free. And so I was like, okay, I'll check this Puppet Master 5 out just so I know what Norton's talking about when he keeps talking about the Puppet Master movies. And so I watched it, and even though it's not my kind of movie, I mean, and even I wouldn't say it's like a big horror movie, at least the ones I've watched. I haven't watched the originals yet, the first like 2 or 3. I'm guessing those are more horror related, maybe. There's definitely violence in them and stuff like that, but like I said, it's very low budget special effects, and it's not like, I don't know, as horrific as as like the Saw movies or some of the big horror franchises. It's not as gruesome as some of those, I think. So I'm actually able to watch them and stomach them, and I'm somewhat intrigued by this series of puppets that come alive and kill people. So I've been watching. So after I watched that one, I've been actually going through the series and trying to watch all of them along with Norin. So when he does his ranking, I have my own kind of ranking to do. Anyway, so I might do a video on Puppet Master just for the fun of it, or just for Norin's amusement. At least, hopefully, I'll amuse him with that idea. And I got Mike. Hey, Mike. Okay, good. Norrin. Puppet Master 4 Live. What was that? It sounds like NWO 4 Live or whatever they did. And so I got Norrin and Mike here in the chat. Hope you're doing well, and always great to see you do a stream. Thank you, Mike. Mike, Dorn, and I planning on doing a live stream on April 15th. Going to count down our top 10 favorite female wrestlers. We did a top 10 male wrestlers last year, and so they're going to come onto my channel, and we're going to do a live stream on the 15th anyway. So plug that since you guys are both in here. I'm looking forward to that. Also, I've been going through an old series that I've always been a fan of called the Thin Man series, which stars William Powell and Myrna Loy as Nick and Nora. Nick is a detective, a murder mystery detective, kind of somewhat retired, and they did a stream of movies, I think 6 movies, starting like in 1934, I think, maybe the first one. So, I mean, way back in the 30s, up into the 40s, they did these 6 movies together based on these 2 characters. and it's a real fun series. And I've watched 5 of the 6 movies, so I got one more to watch, and I might do a video on those at some point, anyways. But yeah, Norn, can't wait. All right, yeah, love to do more stuff with you guys, so I'm excited to get you guys in here again. Also, I'm always going through, trying to get through all the Disney animation movies. And once I get through all of them, I'm going to do a ranking every single Disney animation movie, which is quite a bit right now since the first one came out in like 1937, Snow White and Seven Dwarfs. So I can't remember how many. There's 60 some, I think, movies in that series. So definitely a big series I'm working on, and still trying to get through all of the movies. Anyways, at some point it's a little slow moving because I got so much stuff I'm watching. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of Disney animation movies, so I'm not going to go too much into those until I get through with that series. Let's see, never seen a single Puppet Master movie. I know Norm will be disappointed. Yeah. Yeah, I never seen one either until Norn talked about him, Mike, and then I started kind of delving into the Puppet Master franchise, and yeah, it's been interesting to watch and kind of try to follow along with Norn. Anyways, I got my sister Abby here. Spoiler alert: there's a lot of smoking in the Thin Man series. A lot of smoking, a lot of drinking. Nick especially he drinks all the time. I mean, he's constantly I wouldn't say drunk, but pretty close to being drunk throughout the movie. It's pretty popular thing to do. Yeah, smoking and drinking back in the 30s. But yeah, and then I'm also been watching Disney live action movies as well, starting from 1950 to 1980. I'm doing on Disney Plus. I'm going through Disney Plus and going through all the live action movies they have on there from 1950 to 1980. I don't know. I just picked 30 because that's right before I was born. I was born in 83, so I thought it'd be fun to cover the 3 decades before I was born and try to cover as many of this and the ones they have on Disney Plus. There's some that I think they don't have on Disney Plus, but so I'm going through a lot of Disney Plus stuff anyway. So there's a lot of movies there that I'm not going to talk about that I've been watching lately. So these are other movies I've been watching lately that aren't into those series. So those will be series that I'll be ranking at another date, doing a separate live stream for them. Anyways, but yeah, thank you for everybody that's here, and thank you for watching along, commenting. If Mike, you're here, I think I'll get to first movie I want to talk about is a movie called The Secret Seam. Now you're going to be like, Secret Seam, never heard that movie. What is that movie? And it's probably good reason. It's not an actual, movie in a movie theater. This is actually a very it's a movie made by a fellow YouTuber named Dave, and his last name maybe Gillian. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, but he has a YouTube channel called Interpreting the Stars, which I've seen some of his videos there. And he does a lot of movie reviews, and he does a lot of collaborations with like Mike from Did You See That, and so forth. Anyways, he wrote and directed his own movie and made it, and he somehow was able to get some other YouTubers to do the movie with him, and he was able to shoot it. And it came out this year, I guess. Officially, I think it's a 2023 release. He must have shot in 2022. And so he made this movie, and it's available on, I think, Amazon and Tubi, I think. Anyways, I found it on video on demand. Anyways, kind of through that. Anyway, so it's publicly available. You could watch this movie that this YouTuber made on his own. Anyways, and has one of my best friends on there, Mike from Did You See That, which has been in the chats, and someone does Z Talks. I've been on his Z Talks many times, and he's collaborated with me. And I should say Mike's acting debut kind of plays like the friend that's kind of the comedic sidekick friend, I guess, to Dave, who also stars in the movie. Not only did he write and direct it, but he also stars in it as the lead character. But yeah, Mike's in there quite a bit, which is really cool. And the reason why, of course, I wanted to see is because I want to see my friend Mike in the movie. I was like, wow, I'm seeing my friend in a movie. If you can say that. It's obviously, very, very low budget. I mean, obviously, and it absolutely doesn't have very much stage production. There's not much there. The whole movie is shot on basically, I don't know, a computer or iPhone maybe, and nobody's in the scene together because everybody's talking to each other over like FaceTime basically. So you're just getting so everybody that's in the movie, you're just seeing them in front of the computer doing their scenes. So there's no actual like traveling to destinations. There's no I don't know what you call that. Uh scouting places, that they got into and did a movie scene together. So there's no actually like people pretty much acting across each other. They're acting across each other through the computer screen. So it's a little different, but obviously that's what you have to do if you're gonna make a movie on a very low budget and you don't have a budget at all, basically. So I mean, it's a very, it's not your normal movie in that way. It's not made by a major movie studio. It's not made by professional actors or directors or writers or anything or editors. So it's unprofessional. I don't say that in a mean way. Just people that aren't paid. I don't know what Dave does on his regular job is, but I'm guessing he's not a filmmaker. Is not his main source of income. Uh, but anyway, so just saying that you can't have too high expectations for a movie like this because it's not a major studio movie. It's just a very like homemade movie, but it's available. Anybody can watch it, which is really cool. And I really want to support the movie. I'd say about the movie, it's kind of a sci-fi movie. It's very hard to describe the plot. It's a pretty complicated plot where a character, it's kind of somewhat thriller, where he finds out there's this thing called a secret seam that goes into like another dimension or something. I don't know. And you go through it, and I don't know, a lot of weird stuff happens. And then there's people that are after this secret, and so he's on the run. And there's all these conspiracies that they're trying to figure out. Anyways, and like I said, Dave plays the main character. Mike plays his like friend uh, over the computer who plays video games and kind of, goes on the journey with them, trying to figure out what's going on with the secret seam. And then there's this other guy who's like a radio guy who's a conspiracy theorist, played by another YouTuber, I think, named Justin, I believe. And they three kind of work together to figure out what the secret seam is. That's about the best I can do on the plot. Other guys like Rashad G are in there. He has a short scene in there. And I think he plays Dave's father-in-law, which I didn't get at first. I was like, oh, is he the father-in-law? Is he old enough to be the father-in-law? Maybe, I don't know. Um, and then a guy named Anthony Perez kind of plays this villain character after this information, and he's another really well-known YouTuber in the YouTube community of people that do movie reviews. Anyways, so it's all these YouTubers that I follow. So I would say it's cool just seeing all these people in a movie. I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie. I'm not gonna say it's a good movie. It's a different kind of movie. I mean, it's a movie you just can't really compare it to anything else because, like I said, it's just too low budget to really compare it to a major movie or anything. But I'll just say I was happy to watch it and support my friends, and it's just kind of cool to, like I said, see them in there. And overall, I thought the performances were pretty good by people that aren't professional actors. Like I said, my friend Mike here says, "I promise my acting is and will be better in the future." Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I didn't think the acting was really that bad. I mean, obviously, it's not, Daniel Day Lewis type acting. They just sat in a chair, like Mike. I think he just sat in a chair. All the scenes are done in one room, sitting on his chair in front of his computer, and he did all of his lines in one day. I think he told me. Um, but overall, I thought there was actually a couple of funny moments in there. And it was just funny seeing Mike in there, doing his lines. Like, like remember him saying something. Oh, he even sings the Men in Black song for 1 second. I was like, oh, Mike singing "Here Comes the Men in Black," and I was like, oh my gosh, that was funny. Or saying "Halo is life." It's life. Kind of a funny line he had in there. Anyways, but I'm going a lot about a movie no one knows about, but still, I just wanted to talk about it since Mike's in here. That yeah, I mean, I mean, it'd be hard to recommend to anybody who doesn't know the people that are making it because you'd be lost and be like, well, this isn't like a really good looking movie, but uh, if you're in the YouTube world, it's fun to see other YouTubers able to make a movie and put it out there for everybody to see. Anyway, so it's really cool. Hey, Drew, nice to see you. But yeah, Dave, the main who did everything. I mean, I thought his performance was actually quite good as a lead. I think Justin, I think his name is, if I'm right, plays the radio guy, does a good job, and Anthony Perez does a good job as a villain. And I mean that in the nicest way, because he does have like this, like this beard and piercing look that. And he kind of had a mean look on his face. So I was like, oh, I can see him as a villain. And he's a really nice guy. But still, I thought, yeah, overall, it's worth a watch, anyways, if you want to support other YouTubers and support Dave, anyway. So yeah, so that's the secret scene. Um, all right, to go to some other movies. I'm gonna go to House of Gucci. I watched this last month. This is one I've been on my radar for quite a while. I've been wanting to get to. It came out I think in 2021, and it was one of those movies that before it even came out, it was like on the Oscar buzz. Like when you look up like before the Oscar season comes around, you can always look up like websites and be like, here's our predictions for what we think will be in the Oscar hunt for like best picture and actor and actress and all this. And one of the big ones was House of Gucci. They thought this was going to be a best picture nominee and best actress for Lady Gaga, especially was really on there. And some other things. And ended up only getting like one nomination. It was a bit of a bust. Also Jay Leto. Everybody thought Jay Leto would get an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. In fact, that was probably one maybe most likely. That or Lady Gaga were pretty high up there. It's like I think they were nominated maybe for SAG Awards. Neither one got an Oscar nomination though for their acting in the movie. Yeah, so it kind of was a bust. It didn't get nominated for Best Picture or any of the acting. I think he got nominated for hair and makeup because Jared Leto's in kind of a fat suit. He doesn't look like Jared Leto at all. He totally changed his look and everything for it. So I think he got that. Anyways, but besides that, yeah, it didn't do much, but still, I was kind of interested in watching it just because it had some Oscar buzz behind it, and it looked like this kind of Oscar type movie. Of course, it's based on a true story. Of course, Gucci is this famous family from Italy that formed this big fashion empire, fancy, clothes and purses, I guess, and Gucci is just one of those names that you hear and you just know, oh, it's one of those expensive, uh, fashion labels or whatever. And so it kind of follows this Gucci family. Mostly it follows Adam Driver's character, he's a son of one of the brothers that, or like I think his like grandfather maybe like was the one who created the Gucci, and then it passed down to like the two sons. There's two sons, Jeremy Irons and Al Pacino, are like the two sons that are like in charge of Gucci, and of course they're getting older in age at this point. And so Adam Driver's Jeremy Irons' son in the movie. Anyway, so it follows him, and he uh, starts a relationship with this lady. I forget her name in the movie, but played by Lady Gaga. They kind of meet at a party, and she's just like not rich and famous like, or I say famous, but not rich like him. She's from maybe a poor background, and so there's this whole like, is she in the relationship just to be a gold digger? And in fact, the father, played by Jeremy Irons, doesn't want him to marry her, but he marries her anyways, and so he gets kind of cut out of the family because of that. But then eventually gets back in good with the family. Um, Anyway, so it kind of follows that whole storyline of them getting married, and then what's going to happen with the Gucci, legacy. Um, as they're getting, I think, as they're getting older, Jeremy Irons and Al Pacino's characters who kind of run it, and Al Pacino has a son played by Jared Leto, who's also big on fashion, wants to take over some of the designing and stuff like that. Anyway, so there's all this, what's going to happen with the Gucci family, uh, and I guess not to spoil the movie too much. I'm gonna spoil the movie a little bit though, just because it happened in real life and it's actually an interesting point. And it's something, if you see the trailer, it's in the trailer. It's not, I don't think, a big secret about it, but this happened in real life. This guy that Adam Driver plays marries her, and then they get divorced, and then she hires a hitman to murder him, and that happened in real life. He got murdered by a hitman that the ex-wife hired, and they ended up, of course, convicting her of murder or whatever, accessory to murder or whatever, hiring this hitman, and she's in jail, I think, maybe to this day. I can't remember what happened, but anyway, so it's crazy. It's a really crazy kind of story. So there's some kind of interesting in there um, overall, but overall, it was okay. I would give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So I'm giving it a little bit of a light not recommend. There's not enough here because it's a really long movie. It's one of those things where it's a little too long. And I think I liked the first part of the movie, but I wasn't so crazy about the second half of the movie when we got more into the business deals of Gucci, and who's going to be the next in line for Gucci. I actually kind of find the romance story the best part with Adam Driver and Lady Gaga. Um, their whole meeting up and dating and then getting married. Actually, a nice kind of love story between them. And I like both the actors. I think both Lady Gaga and Adam Driver actually really good in the parts. And I say Lady Gaga. I'm getting to be a pretty big fan of Lady Gaga. I've never been a fan of her music necessarily. She's a good singer though. Even in Star is Born, I didn't like that movie, but I liked Lady Gaga, and I loved the song Shallow. I think it was a really great song. So it made me respect Lady Gaga more after that movie. And she's been kind of on a big run now with that Star is Born nomination. And then she did House of Gucci now, which she didn't get a nomination, but she was, pretty close to getting a nomination for Best Actress. So, and then I think next she's going to be in The Joker 2 playing Harley Quinn. So that's going to be a big role for her. So she's definitely getting some pretty big roles lately. Uh, and I'm all for her being in movies now because I'm like, I kind of like her and what I've seen, even though the movies haven't been maybe the best. But, and also, I just find her very attractive. I think she's a very good looking woman. And she definitely shows off some of her, how good looking she is in these movies. And even this one, there's some pretty good steamy sex scenes between her and Adam Driver. That was like, okay, yeah, so I can see why she's in this movie. But yeah, so like the performance, like I thought Jared Leto was actually pretty good. A lot of people have been kind of criticizing him because he does this very over the top um, Italian accent, of course, because they're from Italy, and everybody says he sounds like Mario because he's doing this very Italian accent like this, and and so they think it's over the top. But I don't know. I thought it was still actually a pretty good performance. I think Jared Leto, of course, an Oscar-winning actor, is actually a pretty good actor. And it was kind of cool. He was so unrecognizable in the makeup. And then Jeremy Irons, I thought was really good, and Al Pacino. There's actually some pretty good performances overall in here. I just say I wasn't crazy about the story in the second half, and it kind of got long and boring in the end. So that's why I'm giving it a light not recommend, but it wasn't a terrible movie. It was almost a good movie, I would say. Let's see, Abby. I want to watch House of Gucci, but then it bombed. So yeah, I was kind of the same way. Like I was kind of excited for the movie, and then it kind of bombed. Yeah, and really didn't go anywhere. And I thought, oh, should I watch it? But I don't know. I was still kind of interested. I saw it on Amazon. It was on Amazon Prime if you have that. And it might be in other places, but that's where I saw it. And Drew said he saw Goodfellas. Good. Big movie from '91, I believe it came out. Considered one of Scorsese's best movies. I'm not a big fan of Goodfellas, but it's okay. I mean, it's just I'm not a big like on mafia movies. I think I know people love that movie. I'm sure you're a fan, Drew. But anyways, yeah. So that's House of Gucci. Next movie I caught again. Sometimes I'll go on a streaming service and just catch movies that I haven't seen before, and sometimes a movie will pop up and I go, "Oh, I haven't seen that one. I kind of want to watch it." And so actually, these first couple movies I watched on Amazon Prime because I was just like, "I'm gonna go on Amazon Prime and just start watching some movies I haven't seen." And so I caught a movie called Ali, which I don't know when that came out. That came out in the early 2000s, maybe 2000 or something like that, with Will Smith playing Muhammad Ali. And this was and this was a biopic kind of following him winning the heavyweight championship against Sonny Liston, and then it ends with him in winning his match against George Foreman at the Rumble in the Jungle. After he had to give up his title, and then he re-won it against George Foreman in a big upset win. Basically, so it follows that period of time, which is a good period. I mean, it's a huge period in Muhammad's life, Muhammad Ali's life. Um, uh, Two the biggest matches he's had in his career, you'd say. So, I mean, some of them maybe throw Joe Frazier in there and stuff, but definitely two famous matches that he got to that he won. Of course, solidified him as the greatest boxer of all time. Anyway, so of course, I remember it was coming out, and I never caught it when it came out. And it's always been one that I've been interested in kind of watching. I'm not a big boxer guy, but Muhammad Ali is, of course, just a really interesting character in a sense because he's such a outgoing, trash talking guy. Not besides being one of the greatest boxer probably of all time. And it's the first time we saw Will Smith really do a serious role where he got an Oscar nomination. His first Oscar nomination for Best Actor was this role playing Muhammad Ali. So it was a big movie for Will Smith at the time, I remember. And really kind of solidified himself as not just, at the time he was just like this comedy actor, and then he turned into kind of an action guy with Independence Day, Men in Black, I, Robot. He was very much a mixture of action and comedy. It was like his thing. And then he did Ali, and it was like, oh, Will Smith can really act. Like he's actually a pretty good actor. Anyways, but I caught this on Amazon Prime. Like I said, this last month, I finally got around to watching it. And to be honest, I really did not like this movie. I thought it was really boring. That's all I can say is like it just bored me to tears, this movie, and I feel like it's a pretty lengthy movie. And I'd say the best parts of the boxing actually is really well done. I want to say like Michael Mann maybe did this, or I can't remember. I want to say Michael Mann maybe did this movie or something like that, which he's not my favorite director. He's a little boring, I think, at times. But like I said, it starts with him beating Sonny Liston for the title, and then his whole converting to Islam, and becoming a controversial figure, and then him not, I think he's supposed to get drafted to the Vietnam War, and he refused to be drafted, and so he got his title taken away and all that. So it goes through those periods, goes through some of his romances that he had at the time, and all that. And yeah, I don't know, I was just really bored, except for the boxing was really well done. Like like I said, the Sonny Liston and then the George Foreman one at the end are really good. And there's a couple other ones in there, and they're pretty long too. They do take a long time on their boxing matches. But yeah, I think it's shot very well in those matches, and they're actually kind of pretty exciting to watch. But the dialogue scenes, I don't know. I got so bored so easily. I mean, I wasn't too far into the movie. I was like, wow, this movie is slow moving and it's not exciting at all. Anyway, so I'd give it 2 stars. I'd give it a very strong not recommend, in my opinion. I don't know if anybody else has seen it out there. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Am I crazy? Maybe it's a good movie. It just didn't, I don't know, didn't catch me for some reason. But that is all the next movie is a documentary that is on Amazon. It's an Amazon documentary, so you have to go to Amazon to watch this. Basically, and it's called Val, which came out a couple years ago, which is a documentary on, now I forgot his name. His name is Val. Gosh, his name escapes me at the moment. But he was in Top Gun and Tombstone. Um, he was Batman in the third Batman movie, Batman Forever. Um, Gosh, what was his name? Anyways, it covers this this actor's career, of course, and um, it's basically him. It's basically him making the documentary, and there's lots of he took a lot of footage. Kilmer, that's it, Val Kilmer. Thanks, Abby. I was like, what is his name? Val Kilmer, yeah. Val Kilmer, yeah. So and it covers Val Kilmer like really took a lot of um, video of him, as he's growing up, and so there's a lot of this homemade videos of him kind of as a kid and a teenager, and him getting to theater acting and all the way to becoming a major actor anyway. So it's kind of cool. I'd say the cool part about this movie is just seeing all this old footage of Val Kilmer and him kind of narrating it, basically him growing up and his relationships and with his family and all that. And then all the acting, all the behind the scenes. You get a lot of cool behind the scenes of certain movies and stuff in this documentary. And yeah, it's mostly just covers Val, and it's interviews with like Val and family members. They get a lot of Val today, like he's in it. We follow him as he goes through like his old school, or showing video, or him looking at videos of his acting. And if you don't know about Val Kilmer, he had a like throat cancer, and he can no longer talk normally. He has to put one of those things up to his neck and kind of do that kind of very, you know, melatonin talk, thing. So it's very hard for him. He can't really talk a whole lot. He mostly has to do expressions. He's definitely looking a lot older. He's gone through quite a bit, and so those scenes are really hard to watch. It's hard to watch Val Kilmer as he's struggling with throat cancer, and talking about and you see his family and him interacting with people. Anyways, so part of the documentary is that just showing what he looks like today and what's going on today with him. And he kind of goes through his career, and it's kind of interesting because I remember Val Kilmer. I probably didn't know who Val Kilmer was until Batman Forever, because I was a big Batman fan, of course. And so I remember when Batman Forever came out, I was pretty excited for that movie, and I was like, I don't know who Val Kilmer is, but he must be a big deal. He's Batman. That's a pretty big role, and I was a big fan of that movie when it came out with Val Kilmer and Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and uh, yeah. Anyways, I mean, I don't know if I don't think it holds up that well now, but at the time it was kind of a cool movie. Anyways, but this covers, of course, he first got his big start kind of in, I want to say Top Gun was kind of one of the big ones, where he played Iceman, kind of the jerk fighter pilot to Tom Cruise. He's even in the new one, Top Gun Maverick. He actually has a small kind of cameo in that one. But yeah, he kind of got in there, and then he actually did this parody comedy actually before that, which I'm forgetting what it's called. But yeah, I did like Top Gun Maverick, and then of course Doors. That was kind of a big one for him because he said he did a couple of movies, and yet he still was struggling to really get good roles. And so he would do tape auditions and just throw them out to like all these major directors for these movies and be like, oh, I want to be in this movie. So like I want to say there was a war movie that he wanted to be in, and so he videoed himself outside, like in like war fatigues and a gun, and pretending to be like doing war scenes and doing dialogue. And anyway, so he did a lot of these stuff and didn't get those roles. But then he did when he heard that they're doing a movie on the Doors, and John, the main, what's his name, Morrison, or so he did auditions and sent it in to the director, and that's how he got his role there. And that definitely made him look like that was definitely maybe his best performance was in the Doors movie. And so that definitely put him on the map as like, wow, this guy is like a really good actor. And that helped him get some more roles. And of course, Tombstone was a big one with Kurt Russell, and he played Doc Holliday, and that was a really good role for him. And I do remember that was a big one for him. And he did a couple of things like that, which he was starting to become like this new young coming out. He was in Heat, was another big one he was in. So he definitely was doing these pretty big roles and everything. And then he kind of came to Batman Forever, and he hated that role. It's funny when he talks about it, he absolutely hated doing Batman, because in the bat suit you can't move very good, and you have to move your head like this. And he said it's very uncomfortable, and I think he felt like it wasn't a very good acting role. It was like this iconic big blockbuster role. Probably the movie that made the most money that he did. Yet he didn't want to do any more Batmans. After that, he's like, I can't do Batman again. Uh, I think because he was a theater actor, he even gets into his theater acting when he got into theater. And one of the most interesting scenes, I think, in the documentaries, he did a play with had Sean Penn in it and um, Kevin Bacon. So there's some cool footage of him and Sean Penn and Kevin Bacon all like in the early 20s, hanging out, doing this play together. And I was like, wow, having those three actors in a play like that would have been pretty cool to see back in the day before any three of them became famous stars. Anyways, but yeah, so he was definitely this like young up and coming star basically. And he was pretty big at the time. And this is like the mid 90s probably when he did Batman. And after that, his career really kind of went downhill, and he kind of disappeared because he did he did The Saint, which is a bomb movie. And then he did The Island of Dr. Monroe, huge bomb. I mean, and it's infamous for being a really terrible shoot. Like it was horrible the way it was shot, and it was Marlon Brando's like last role maybe, or one of his last roles, and Marlon Brando was just like not there, and he was barely in the movie, and he was kind of weird. There's even scenes with him talking to Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was not really even listening to Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer's asking him questions, and he's sitting on a swing, and he's like, push me. And it's like, okay, Marlon Brando, like you're off the deep end. Anyways, Val Kilmer hated that role, and it shows him fighting with the director in the movie. Anyways, so a lot of interesting stuff there. But after that, his roles started to get smaller and smaller, and he went through a divorce, and he was dealing with alcohol problems, and so he had a lot of issues going on. And he came back and did a couple movies here and there, like with Robert Downey Jr. He did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which he was pretty good in, a pretty good role there. And yeah, he was in The Prince of Egypt as well, which was a good voice acting role. But yeah, so he did stuff here and there, but he kind of disappeared as this big star like he was in the 90s. Anyway, so the documentary kind of goes through all that. Overall, I'd give it 3 stars out of 5. I'd give it a light recommend. It wasn't one of my favorite documentaries I've watched. Like I said, some of the behind the scene features of movies that he was working on was actually really interesting. It was kind of cool to see all that stuff and him working with the actors behind the scenes and the directors. I would say it was too long. I can't remember how long this movie is, but I remember watching this thinking just this documentary is going a little too long. And I wasn't a fan of the parts where it's showing Val Kilmer in current day. I wasn't a big fan of that stuff because it's just really hard to watch Val Kilmer because he's dealing with the throat cancer and he can't really talk. And he definitely looks a little beaten down, and all that. And so I was like, I could have done without those scenes, a lot of those scenes with him currently, what he looks like. And I'm more interested in the homemade videos that he did growing up and all these scenes on these movies. Like that was definitely the highlight of the movie. And like I said, Val Kilmer, I'm not like a huge fan of Val Kilmer. He was a decent actor, I thought. So it's not the biggest name to do a documentary on, but still somewhat interesting. Probably worth a watch if you like any of Val Kilmer's stuff, or you remember having the nostalgia for watching Val Kilmer back in the 90s like I do. Hey Adam, how's it going? Yeah, saw The Secret Scene starring Mike from Did You See That? Mike, you might have an acting career there, maybe campaign for Best Supporting Actor for next year's Oscars, I think, go for something like that. Get yourself an agent. Who knows where you can go. Yeah, so that's Val. Next I'm going to talk about, I'm going to cover some Oscar movies that I caught up with before the Oscars, which happened a month ago. Happened in March. I've seen 9 of the 10. I still need to see Avatar 2, The Way of Water, which I can see it's on video on demand. I thought it'd be on Disney Plus, but it's not on Disney Plus. But you can see it on Disney. You can see it on video on demand. So at some point, I'm like, I'm gonna have to try to watch that 3-hour movie at some point. And then I'll have seen all of the 10 Best Picture nominees. So a couple nominees that I did watch recently, or this last month before the Oscars. First one I'm talking about is Triangle of Sadness. This is a movie that is a very obscure movie. I feel like that I didn't never saw a trailer for it really advertised. I saw it was on video on demand. And I was like, oh, what's this movie, Triangle of Sadness? And on the poster thing, the image that you see, I think it says some critic says, oh, like this great comedy for our times or something like that. So I remember looking at it, and the only name I knew was Woody Harrelson's. I'm like, oh, okay, Woody Harrelson's on it, and it's a picture of a boat. So I'm like, okay, they're on a boat on like a cruise. They're on like a cruise, and Woody Harrelson's in it. And it's a comedy. I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. But didn't really know much about it. And then I kind of heard people talk about it. And next thing you know, it gets nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, and I think Best Original Screenplay. So I'm like, wow, I never thought this movie would be a Best Picture type movie. It's one I've never heard of, don't know anything about, and I don't think I doubt anybody out there is, unless you're, like me and you try to watch all these big movies, Oscar movies, you've probably never seen this movie or heard of it, know nothing about it. Anyway, so finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this Triangle of Sadness. Definitely sadness. I definitely felt very sad not sad because of the movie, sad that I had to sit through this really terrible movie. It is one of the worst movies of the year that I saw. The worst. It's my least favorite out of the Best Picture nominees I've seen. It's just beyond dumb of a movie. But the movie, it's so weird because all I knew was like, oh, I knew that they're on a cruise and the cruise crashes and they're on an island and they have to survive on an island. I knew that apart of the plot. I kind of knew that about the plot. But the movie begins, and it begins with this. One of the main actors is a male model, and there's like this at the very beginning of the movie, there's like 20 minutes of him doing male modeling and talking to these people that hire male models, I guess, and him doing poses, without a shirt. And there's all these other male models that are shirtless, doing these poses. And of course, I'm like, okay, what is going on here? What is this movie? Like, this is not on a boat. Like, it was in fact, I had to look like, did I click? I thought I clicked on the wrong movie, and I had to go, is this Triangle of Sadness? Did I click on that? And I looked at it, I was like, no, this is Triangle of Sadness. This doesn't seem like the movie I thought it was going to be. But why are we spending like 20 minutes or 15 minutes at the beginning watching this guy pose shirtless? It was a terrible beginning to the movie where I'm like, oh, this movie looks terrible. First 15 minutes, I'm very lost at like, what is this movie about? And it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's just just introduced to this main guy who's a male model, who's a young, he's like in his early 20s and good looking guy. And it's like, okay, who cares about why the scene went on way too long. We then go to a scene where he's at a restaurant with his girlfriend, who's also like a model. She's very good looking. She's like they say YouTube or social media influencer, I guess, and model. Anyway, so they're at a like fancy restaurant. Yeah. And they're having their dinner, and then the bill comes, and of course, usually the guy pays for the meal when you're on a date. That's just the way it's always been. The way it's probably always going to be. And he starts getting an argument with his girlfriend about why he has to pay the bill all the time. Why can't she pay the bill? And anyways, and they get in the stupidest argument, and it's just a terrible argument because it's like, dude, just man up and pay the bill. If you're a man, you just pay the freaking bill. You don't argue with your date. It's the worst date I've ever seen in a movie. So it's like, yeah. So it's just weird. Was like, why? And it's like 15 minutes. It's another 15 minutes of the movie. It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's just a 15-minute scene. So we're 30 minutes into the movie, and we haven't gotten on the freaking yacht yet, the cruise yet. And so we're watching it, and it's like, what is going on in this movie? And they get in this big fight at the restaurant, and then they go to the hotel, and they still fight about this whole, thing about why does the guy have to pay the bill at the restaurant. It's like, oh, has anybody had that argument before? Who cares? You just pay the bill. Be a man. And so I hated these characters so much. 30 minutes in, I'm like, these are two main characters. I hate these people so much. Uh, but I feel sorry for the girl. The girl needs to get out of it. In fact, they don't break up. And I thought, oh, they're going to break up. Surely the girl's going to break up with this guy because he's almost on the verge of being abusive in this relationship. So I'm like, man, girl, get out of this relationship. This guy's abusive. He's a terrible boyfriend. He's selfish. And anyways, but no, they stay together. Anyway, so now we finally get to they're on a yacht or something, or cruise, for rich people. And they're on there, I think, to take pictures, themselves and post it on social media. And so they're getting paid to go on this yacht, I think. At least the girl is. So yeah, so then a big portion of the movie, they're on the cruise. They it's all these really rich people, a lot of them older rich people, and the movie is definitely a social criticism of the rich. There's so many movies that are like, oh, rich people are bad. Look how bad rich people are. There's all these kind of movies like this, and The Menu, and you could probably even say Glass Onion. I feel like there's some other ones, but I feel like we get so many of these movies of rich people bad, which I think is stupid. Like, rich people aren't bad. There's bad people and rich people, and there's bad people that are poor people, whatever. But it's definitely this, oh, look how bad these rich people are, and how they're so out of touch, which maybe some of that's true, but it's just boring to me kind of idea, and lazy, to just pick on rich people. But so it's all these people, and they're like, oh, look how, and they're just regular. I'm not regular people, but they're just these old people that are rich white people that have the business and they make money. But like one has a business in ammunition, so they're evil because they're into making war weapons or something. And anyways, all this stuff. Anyways, and so a lot of this on the yacht, and Woody Harrelson's the captain, but he's totally checked out. He just spends his whole time in his room getting drunk, and he doesn't really care about the passengers. He's like the worst captain ever. And this is basically the worst cruise ever. One of the worst cruises on ever I've seen in a movie. And so a lot of it's them going around talking to these other people on the yacht, and you kind of meet these different people, and there's just the most boring conversations I'd ever seen in a movie. They have this conversation with one couple, and I'm just like, wow, this is a really boring, who cares conversation. And then they go talk to someone else. I'm like, wow, this is a really boring. There's just one boring conversation after another. And I was like watching this going, man, this is so awful. I'm just halfway through this movie, and I'm like, this is the most boring, just pointless movie I've ever seen. Anyways, and then they get to the scene where they have this captain's dinner where they all get dressed up and they go have dinner. And I won't go too much detail except that the food gets rotten because of one of the rich people. I'll just say that. I won't go into detail, but because one of the rich people on the boat, the food actually goes rotten, and they eat this rotten food, and everybody gets sick, and then it's also storming on top of that, and so there's lots of throwing up and lots of diarrhea, and it's one of the grossest scenes I've seen in a movie. It's just a really horrible, gross scene of people, just a montage of people throwing up and having diarrhea like constantly, and the diarrhea is overflowing in the toilets because there's too many people having diarrhea, I guess, and the toilet system can't handle it, and the boat's rocking back and forth because it's a storm, so everybody's like, so there's diarrhea and throw up on the floor, and people are just rolling around in diarrhea and throw up as the boat's like going back and forth. Anyways, it's just madness. And then anyways, I'm going a lot on this movie because it's just so terrible. The yacht ends up crashing on an island, and they have to. There's only 6-7 survivors off of this boat, and so they're on an island. And Woody Harrelson, he doesn't make it, so he's barely in the movie, and he's like one of the headliners of the movie, and he's in the movie for 10 minutes. Besides that, anyway, so they're on an island, and then the whole last part of the movie is them on the survivors on this island and trying to figure out how to survive. And it's all these rich people, and then there's this one lady who's Filipino, who is one of the servers. She's one of the maybe housekeepers, something like that, on the boat. And so the whole thing is like she knows how to fish and she knows how to cook food. So she ends up becoming like the leader of the island, even though all these rich people look down on her because she's poor, but because she has actual life skills, like survival skills, she ends up being the leader of the group. And so the whole, so that, like I said, it's all about, oh, rich people bad, good, poor people good. And so she kind of gets power with this group. And so that's actually the most interesting part of the movie, I'd say. If the movie was just about that, it could have been a kind of interesting movie. Because that definitely was the most interesting part, is this idea of this person who has survivor skills. Of course, all the rich people don't have survivor skills because they have servants that they pay. And so it was interesting seeing her take charge, and then she becomes power hungry, and I thought they were going to kill her because I thought, man, she's getting too power hungry, to where I didn't like her either. And like, I didn't like any of the characters. They're all just terrible characters. Anyways, and then, not to go into too much, but it's just the worst ending I've ever seen to a movie, where we get this scene where something interesting looks like it's going to happen, but then it cuts out. The movie cuts out before anything happens. So there's this moment where you think this thing's going to happen, and also we cut to the main guy running through this jungle for no reason. We don't know why he's running. He just all of a sudden he's running. There's no pretense to why he's running in the jungle. I'm like, is he being chased? Is he running towards something? I don't know. All of a sudden you see him running through the jungle, and the movie stops. It's over. Finished. I'm like, wait a minute. Something happened. What, did they miss something here? It was the weirdest sudden ending to a movie I've ever seen, where it's like, just when something interesting was going to happen, it's over, and you're like, okay. So there was no ending to this movie. It's a movie without an ending. There's no conclusion to the story. There's nothing satisfactory happening with, do they get off the island? We don't know. Are they going to die on the island? I don't know. We just don't know. There's, just no conclusion to the story, which is the whole point of making a movie, is you got to have an ending to conclude the freaking story, include what's going to happen to these characters. Why am I investing myself into the story and these characters if nothing happens in the end? It's just maddening, and I hated this movie so much. I give it half a star, like the worst I can give on it. Let's see, Adam. I would love you to watch my review on Secret Scene. Mike definitely needs to be in more films. Definitely. Mike, yeah, you got to get an agent, get in some more films. He'll be in What the Gym, the movie. Yes. Maybe just, yeah, I would totally take a job acting in a movie. I could totally do that. If you can hook me up, Mike and Adam, hook me up to the movies. Let's see, Abby. Wow, you really hate this movie. I did. I hated this movie so much. I didn't think it was that bad. Oh, so you watched it? You saw it, Abby? I thought it was watchable. I didn't mind seeing the difference between rich and poor. Yeah, that's kind of the main part of the movie. Okay. Yeah, and see, I haven't heard anybody else rant about this movie, but man, I watched it and I was like, can anybody like this movie? This is the worst movie. Like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I hate that they got nominated for Best Picture. It just makes the Academy just, useless. I mean, how can you nominate Triangle of Sadness for Best Picture? I mean, you should be ashamed, Academy. You should all be fired for doing that. Anyway, so yeah, that's Triangle of Sadness. Next, I'm gonna get to another movie I absolutely hated. Actually, all these movies, the movie that got nominated for Best Picture, I hated them. Almost all of them. Top Gun Maverick was okay. The rest were terrible. I think it was just a really horrible list of movies. Next movie I'm going to talk about is called Tar, starring Cate Blanchett, which her last name is Tar, I believe, in the movie. And it's a movie where she plays a famous fictional music conductor or whatever, conducts these big symphonies, and she's like this famous female music person in the movie, and it kind of follows her as she's going to do this big concert. I forget where it's at. It's like in Berlin or something. Or I don't know. It's just going to do this big. So it's coming up to this big concert, whatever. And anyways, she has some scandalous stuff that happened to her, and she's gonna have to pull out of this concert basically, though she doesn't want to. And it's kind of she's kind of ruined her career because she's had some, you know, let's just say scandalous relationships with fellow musicians in the symphonies. Anyway, so that's kind of the plot of the movie. Um, I can only say this is one of the most boring movies I've ever. And it's like 2.5 hours, and it's just a lot of just sitting around and talking. A lot about the music. Abby, maybe you would like that better than me because you know more about you know, music scores and stuff, or you know, symphonies and stuff. Uh, but yeah, it's just really long. It's really, I mean, yeah, it's just Triangle of Sadness. I think is a worse movie, but Tar is maybe a more boring movie than Triangle of Sadness. I think of all the best pictures, this definitely was the most boring of them. Sitting her, Kate Blanchett sitting around talking about whatever, and there's scenes where she's lecturing, like she's teaching a class or something. So she's doing lectures, and it starts with her doing this interview, and it takes like 20 minutes. First 20 minutes is her doing an interview, and it's like, wow, this should be only like 5 minutes long. Uh, every scene should be about 5 minutes long. Instead, it's 20 minutes long. It's just they didn't know how to edit this movie down to a level that is watchable. And yeah, story. She's a terrible character. It's a terrible story, and it has kind of a not a really great ending to it. At least it has an ending. I'll say that. I'll give that credit that there's an end to it. We're like, all right, this movie has a conclusion, I guess. And it's not really a great conclusion, but at least it's something. But there's absolutely nothing I can say that's good about this movie. Even they got nominated for Best Picture again, which is just insane. Uh, Kate Blanchett got nominated for Best Actress, and she came pretty close. She won maybe the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice or something, or the BAFTA. So she was winning a lot of awards, and in fact, she was kind of the front runner till Michelle Yeoh overtook her, of course, and won the Oscar. But a lot of people, and Kate Blanchett, I think, is one of the best actresses working today. She's a great actress. I thought this was just an okay performance. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is a great performance." You know, she's going to win the Oscar. And I watched it, and I was like, it was just an okay performance. It's not top tier level Kate Blanchett performances, in my opinion. I mean, she's a good actress in everything she does, but I don't know. It didn't wow me like it did everybody else. So yeah, I give this a half a star. I can't do not watch this movie if you don't have to, unless you just want to watch Best Picture nominees like me. It is just horrendous to try to sit through. See, Abby, you haven't seen Tar? Maybe I'll watch it sometime. I'm not in a hurry. I wouldn't be in a hurry. Of course, my sister Abby, she actually got a degree in music education, so she knows a lot more about. And she used to have to, you know, conduct, you know, these bands or whatever, these orchestras and stuff. So she knows a lot more about music theory and stuff that I wouldn't know. Anyways, but yeah, a lot of if you're a music theory nerd, this might be a movie for you. But yeah, that's Tar. The next movie I'm talking about is called Women Talking. The last movie I saw that was nominated for Best Picture. And I heard other people say this, and it's kind of funny, but it's true. It's the title of the movie is so true to the movie. I mean, it says everything you want to know about this movie. It's a movie about women talking. That's a whole movie. It's just a lot of women sitting in a barn talking, which as a guy, I don't really care to see women talking that much. You know, I'm like, oh, women talking. That's like the worst thing. That's like the worst idea for a movie for me. It's like, gosh. But it's interesting. It's based somewhat on the true story of this religious community, I guess you call it. And it's not that long ago. It's like only like it's within the last decade or something like that. This movie is based off, though it looks like it's made like 100 years ago because the women wear dresses and they don't have like electricity, I don't think, or running water. So they live in very primitive lifestyle, farming, and they look like Amish people. But I read the backstory of Women Talking. The book that's based off of is actually a Mormon community in South America. I forget now where, but it's like it's in a South American country, so it's not even an American uh, community. So it's a Mormon, which I didn't know there's Mormon communities in South America, but so it's based off of this true story happened in South America that this Mormon community where the men were abusing the women, they were drugging women and then raping them during the night, which is absolutely horrendous. And you should get away from any kind of religion that thinks that's or is okay or doesn't immediately put these people in jail for the rest of their lives for doing that. So the whole thing is these women are getting tired of being raped in this community, and so they're like, hey, what are we going to do? The men say that you have to forgive the rapist for some reason, and which is insane. It's like right there, I'm like, okay, that's a red flag. Get out of this cult. I would say this cult religion. Get out of it if men are okay with this. They're the elders. They're the leaders. And so the kind of these leaders, these women leaders, I guess you can say, they get together in a barn and they talk about what are we going to do about this situation, and that's the whole movie. Are we going to stay? Are we going to run? Or do we stay? Do we fight this, or do we run away? And escape this? Which I'm like, run away. That's easy. That's an easy choice. Get out of there. Do not stay in a community of men that do that kind of stuff or allow that to happen. But yeah, so it's them talking and it's not a very long movie, which I'll give it a lot of credit. I think it's better than Tar and better than Triangle of Sadness because it's just barely over like an hour and a half. So I'm like, oh, good God, thank you for giving me a movie that's not freaking 2.5 to 3 hours long. Every movie's 2.5 to 3 hours long. It feels like, So I'm like, all right, good. Only an hour and a half. I have to watch this. Overall, it's still a pretty boring movie, and I don't really care about the subject matter that much. Like I said, it's hard to make a movie where you're sitting in almost one location the whole time and you're just talking. There's no movement. There's not a lot of movement of, movies are interesting because you're like, okay, I'm going to be in this scene's taking place in this house. This scene is going to be taking place outside over here. This scene is going to be taken out at someone else's house. This scene is going to be at at the grocery store, or at a bank, or maybe even we go to another country or another state. I don't know. There's got to be some kind of movement in a movie to make it interesting most of the time, unless the dialogue is so good that you're fascinated by what's going on. And the dialogue's not good enough to make this an interesting watch, in my opinion. And so, yeah, as when we're talking about just all the problems they have in this, and then they talk about other things that have nothing to do with the subject matter. It's just kind of all over the place. I would say I didn't think it won best screenplay for adapted screenplay, I believe. But I would say I didn't think the screenplay was all that good, to be honest. It was weird because these women they can't read, so they obviously are not educated because they're living in this religious community where the women are just get married, have children, and are housewives, and the men are probably working, farming, and all that, making the money. And anyway, so that's probably the dynamic there. And so these women are having this very philosophical debates about, religious debates about what's going on. And I'm just like, okay, are these women smart or are they dumb? Because they're not educated, yet they're having these very, educated conversations. I don't know. It didn't really fit with the characters, I would think. And I didn't like, sometimes they would be fighting and arguing. And I was like, I don't care to hear women fighting and arguing, that's not fun to watch. And some of the characters come kind of uninteresting because they're just mad all the time. They're like, okay, here's this angry woman. I'm getting tired of hearing her. Anyways, but I will say this, the acting is really good. And it's a shame that at least two of the actresses should have been nominated for Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress. Because I didn't think the people that were nominated for Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, I didn't think were that strong of a category this year. And they definitely should have gotten at least one or two of the actresses. I think, was it Rooney was one of the girls, and Buckley was another one, and Foy, I think, was another name of one of the actresses. Yeah, so those three actresses did a really good job. So I'll give that credit. And actually, like I said, I'll give this 2 stars. It's a strong not recommend. but I didn't hate it as much as I hated Tar and Train with Sadness. So this actually was like a step up, um, which was good because I was getting kind of tired of watching the really terrible movies. So I was kind of happy to see this and go, oh, at least this one, the horrible movie. But yeah, it should. The problem, like I said, is that you can't make a movie just in one setting with people talking. It's very hard to do that. And there's no men. Basically, there's one guy in the whole movie who does a good performance as well. But I would have been more interested if there was more men in the movie and there's more conversations about what was going on between the men and the women. And then I would love to see some kind of trial. Like there should have been a trial. The men who raped the women should have been put on trial. There should have been a lawyer involved. There should have been a police investigation involved in the movie. And they should have had some kind of trial where they get convicted and they go to jail for the rest of their lives. Like that would have been a satisfactory ending to this movie where I've been like, okay, this was an interesting movie, but the fact that it's all about these women just talking in the barn, it's like that's not enough for a movie. You got to have more stuff going on. So yeah, 2 stars. Still not recommend, but actually better than some of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture. Believe it or not. Let's see, Norn. Been a lot of experimental movies over the past couple of years. I haven't seen Tar or Women Talking yet. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on Knock at the Cabin. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna get to that movie actually next. Norn, I don't know if you read my mind or if you did you see my page that I'm looking on? Gosh, I'm running out of liquid. My throat's starting to feel a little tired talking here, but we'll get through it. And What the Gym the movie or Jason Hill Millennial movie? Do we hire Keanu Reeves to play John Wick and catch a rocket, whilst I catch a rocket and we throw them at each other? I tell you, you write the screenplay, Mike. I think you got something there. We're joking about John Wick, and where's the John Wick series is getting kind of crazy. I've gone on about this. I did a spoiler review with Adam from What the Gym this last Friday, I think, or somewhere around there. It was that yesterday, or yeah, Friday. I think it was Friday. We did something on that. Anyways, talking about how John Wick is indestructible. He can get hit by cars, he can fall off of buildings, and he's okay. He gets up and walks it off. And we're like, what can kill him? And Mike said, or someone said, what if we shot a rocket at? Or I think Mike asked the question, and Adam said, maybe we shoot a rocket at at John Wick. That's how you kill John Wick. And Mike said, no, John Wick would just put a chokehold on the rocket. And I was like, that was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And I was like trying to picture John Wick, Keanu Reeves as John Wick, trying to chokehold a rocket, and I was like, that's what he would do. Where else are you going to go with this series? It's just so crazy. But yeah, so now in this scenario, you're going to catch a rocket. John Wick's going to catch a rocket. And you're going to throw it at each other. Okay. Now you're going. This would be a crazy movie. It sounds like, Mike. And I don't know where we're going to get the budget for rockets. And also the budget to hire Keanu Reeves would be pretty big. But let's make it happen. I was thinking to myself, like, I haven't seen Cocaine Bear, whatever. But I was like, what if John Wick was in Cocaine Bear? He would just choke Cocaine Bear out, wouldn't he? If there was a fight between Cocaine Bear and John Wick, John Wick would probably just give the bear a chokehold and, like, choke it out, maybe. I can see that happening. You can put John Wick in any movie, and he's just going to choke that person out, do some kind of chokehold, But you can go on and on about John Wick. So as Norrin said, the movie I caught was Knock at the Cabin. I caught this on video on demand. Movie came out this year. It's one of the few movies I've seen so far that came out this year. It was an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It was this big, I say big, kind of, it was somewhat, I think people looked forward to it when it came out as this kind of, M. Night Shyamalan kind of does these thriller / horror type movies, I guess you can say. So this movie kind of had this like kind of horror thriller kind of vibe to it, and sci-fi. He does a lot of sci-fi as well. Anyways, and so this is a movie I wasn't sure. Just watching the trailer, I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on in this movie. But I was intrigued to watch it. I know a lot of people watched it. I feel like it got mixed reviews on it. And M. Night Shyamalan, of course, I was a big fan with with Sixth Sense and Signs. I thought were good movies, but then he kind of fell off. And of course, he's made some really really terrible movies like The Happening and Battlefield Earth and Avatar, The Airbender, Last Airbender. And so he made a lot of terrible movies, and so it's kind of hard to. Anytime his name is on something, it's hard to really take it seriously and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm not Shyamalan. Is he going to screw this movie up? Can you do a good movie anymore?" Anyways, I watched Knock at the Cabin. It was an interesting. I would say it was a very interesting premise to the movie. Um, if you've seen anything about it, this gay couple and their adopted daughter are at this cabin that they're like vacationing at, and these four strangers show up and kind of like a house invasion, I guess, of this cabin. They tie the people up, and they tell them that one of them is going to have to die, and they have to pick which one of the three are going to die, basically, and they have to kill that person. And if they don't, then the apocalypse is going to happen, and everybody's like maybe not everybody, but most everybody's going to die in the world. Uh, and so they have to make this decision. The four strangers can't make the decision, and so if they do it, then the apocalypse won't happen. If they don't do it, then it will happen. Anyway, so that's kind of the premise of the movie. So the whole, of course, point of the movie is like, are these people real? Are they just weird cult people that have these visions? Or is there's a real apocalypse happening? What do we believe kind of thing? Anyway, so so this whole thing happens. They get kidnapped. Batista plays kind of the leader of this group. Um, we also get Rupert Grint, who, of course, played Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter movies. In the movies, he was very interesting as well. The movie does have a good creepy vibe to it that I thought was really well done. Of course, and M. Night Shyamalan, I think, is a good director. I would say overall, it was directed very well. I think Shyamalan still has a really good eye for making a thriller movie, and there are some good thriller scenes in the movie, and really good vibe throughout, I would say. I would, and I would say the performances are actually quite good. This is Batista's best performance, Dave Batista, who, of course, I've been following since he was a wrestler. Batista used to follow him in WWE, and he was a really great wrestler, and I always was one of my favorite wrestlers. I would say in the 2000s, and then he kind of broke off and started making movies. Of course, made it big with Guardians of the Galaxy, playing Drax, and he's done some stuff here and there, and he's done a fairly good job because he's a big guy, so he's good. He's a good character to put in an action movie or whatever. You play him as a villain, or I guess as a hero. Put him and he can be in the army, whatever action movie you want him to be in. You can fit him in there because he's just so big and strong, and just scary, intimidating looking kind of guy. So he fits well in those kind of movies. So it was interesting him playing this part because he's very kind of soft-spoken kind of character, and he's actually like a very polite character. It was interesting because he's very kind of nice and polite, but yet he's got all these like tattoos all over his body, and he's obviously this 6'5", bulking guy. So he's still kind of scary looking, but yet the way he talks is not scary. So it was very interesting. It's a different role than I've ever seen Batista do. And I thought he totally nailed it, and he was great as the lead. After this, I'm like, man, I want to see Batista do more interesting stuff like this, not just action comedies. We see him he can do comedy really well. We've seen that with Guardians of the Galaxy. He can do action really well. He's done really, I think, really grown as an actor. And watching this, I'm like, wow, it's basically a dramatic role, and he actually is really good in this dramatic role. That I'm like, wow, he can do drama. Like I'm kind of fascinated seeing him more stuff, maybe, and do more roles like this. I think he's actually quite a good actor now, which I never thought I would say. It's always hard when you're coming out of WWE. You're not all going to be like Dwayne Johnson, who's had a huge career. But anyways, yeah. So I love that performance, and I love Rupert Grint, who's not in the movie actually a real long time. But it was different. It was such a different character for him. Of course, I only knew him as Ron Weasley. And so in this role, it's like, wow, he actually is really good with this character. And I was like, he should be in more movies, Rupert Grint. Like, I think he's actually not a bad actor. Like, I didn't know because you watch him growing up as a kid in Harry Potter, and you're just like, kid actors aren't always the best, so you don't know if they can grow up to be good actors as adults. But I thought he actually, the small role, he's kind of a jerky character, and he did a really good job. Like I was like, wow, like I didn't think Rupert Grint would be this good, or Batista. So I was kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed the performances. And there's other two female performers. I don't know who the actresses are. They do a good job as well. So I think the acting actually really quite good. Where the movie loses me is the whole storyline. I couldn't quite get on board with. Uh, and it was interesting because it's like, oh, yeah, this whole thing, you're going to have to kill one of your family members. And so, of course, we're like, no, we're not going to do that. Of course, as anybody would say, and like, you guys are just nut jobs. And there are some violent, kind of disturbing things that happen, I guess you can say. And then they show, like, they'll turn the TV on, and then there'd be like a hurricane or something, and it'll go, and they said, yeah, we had these, and they kept talking about visions. They had these visions of this apocalypse happening, and somebody gave them these visions, and the four of them, and told them to, like, go to this place at this time, and told them to go to this, cabin, and everything they're doing is because they were given visions by somebody. And the problem I had with this movie is they never say who's giving them these visions. Is it God? I don't say God, but I'm like, I mean, God wouldn't do this. I guess as a Christian, I'm like, I don't like this idea that God wouldn't do this. God says in the Bible, if you read Revelation, God says what's going to happen in the end times. So we already have a blueprint of what's going to happen through Revelation, what God's going to do next, and it's not going to be this. What's happening in this movie? So I'm like, I don't like that idea. If they're going to say, is God orchestrating all of this, giving these visions, and is God the one that's saying, threatening to kill humanity unless? And it's such a weird idea, and it doesn't make any sense. Why it's this gay couple and their daughter. Why are they? They kind of said like, oh. I think they said like every, I don't know, it's like every 100 years, a family is picked, and so it's like this thing that happened actually. Like, I guess if it's not after this, there's gonna be another family that's gonna have to make the same decision in the future. I don't know. And they made it in the past. I think that's what the idea was behind it, but it just didn't make any sense. Like, why would you pick a random family, and why would you want them to kill each other? What would that accomplish? And why would that save humanity? It didn't really make any sense, the whole story plot line for me. And I wish they would have said, who gave them the visions? Who is this mysterious being, supernatural being, I guess, that we're supposed to believe is giving these visions? Like, I think they should have spent more time on that. And that really hurt the movie for me. One scene that really hurt the movie for me is one scene. I'm spoiling a little bit of the movie, but one of the guys has a gun in the back of his car, and so he's trying to get to his gun, and he's getting chased to the car, and he's getting attacked, and so it's this, it's pretty thrilling scene. He's finally gets the gun, and he points it at the people, but he doesn't shoot them. He just says, "Oh no, get out of here!" He just points the gun at them, and it's trying to say, "Okay, move away," or and I'm like, a real gun person would just start shooting. I mean, if somebody invades your home with a weapon and your spouse and your kid is there, you're gonna just shoot first, ask questions later. That's the way it should be. So that frustrated me to no end, that he like points the gun at Batista and is just like move away from my family, sit over there. And I'm just like, no, shoot the guy. The guy invaded your home. He's threatening your family. You don't just point a gun at the person, you shoot that person. And I think that was something I think any gun owner would agree with. If you're in your house, you have the right to shoot somebody if they're threatening your life or your family member's life, especially if your family's there. I was thinking, if a guy broke into my house and my wife was in the house and had a gun, I would shoot that guy right away. I wouldn't, no warnings, just you're in my house, bam, you're not gonna get out. Anyway, so that was one of the most frustrating scenes I've ever seen in a movie. I'm like, that is not the way a normal person should act in that situation. Anyways, so that's just a nitpick maybe of that. Yeah, and then the ending, I thought there's gonna be some kind of twist I don't want to reveal what happens in the end, but there's really not a big twist like I thought. I thought something, because they kept obviously going towards the end where it's like, oh, if you don't kill one of your family members by there's a certain time period, like if you don't kill them by this time, then apocalypse is going to happen. And so the whole movie is kind of this time bomb going towards this, oh, what's going to happen? Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? Is humanity going to suffer? It's this whole idea. And that whole time I was thinking, I hope that's not what's going to happen. I hope this is all like some kind of ruse, that it's not really, that there is no apocalypse. I don't know, but it kind of points, I guess I'm spoiling the movie, but it kind of points to that there is an apocalypse coming, that they are given visions, that everything they're saying is true. But in my heart, like I wanted it not to be true and have some kind of cool twist reveal that would have maybe saved the movie, but it doesn't really happen. And the movie kind of ends and you're just like, oh, that's it. That's the ending. Okay. I mean, it's not that exciting of an ending to me. So overall, I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars, which is a light not recommend. Like I said, the story just didn't make enough sense to me and I didn't care for it enough to give the recommend. Though I think it was shot well and I think it was acted well. So it was on the cusp of being a recommend, but overall for me, it's a slight not recommend. I don't know, Norton. I think you liked the movie, so I hate saying that, but I want to say you gave it a recommend. If you're still there, Norton. See, Batista was fantastic. This was one of his greatest performances. I agree. Second would be Sapper and Blade Runner 2049. Yeah, I've heard of that movie and that he's in that one as well. He's also in Spectre, I believe, one of the James Bond movies, playing, of course, a henchman, which he fits pretty good. Let's see, Norton. I think it was one of M. Night's more straightforward films. Yeah, I agree. I appreciate the no twist aspect. See, I was kind of the opposite, which I was kind of waiting for a twist. And the fact there wasn't one kind of disappointed me, I guess. But I can kind of see what you mean. Maybe it's nice not to have a twist every once in a while. I felt the film was about sacrifice and belief. I don't know if I necessarily believe their visions. Okay, yeah, yeah, it's definitely about sacrifice because they wanted them to sacrifice one of their family members and believe this cause, I guess. But I don't know who gave them the visions, but or what was going on there, but if there's there's only one supernatural being, that's God. And so I just don't believe God would do this, but yeah. Okay. My voice is going to go out, so I don't know how much more I can do, but I'm an hour and 22 minutes in. Next movie I talk about is I caught this movie on HBO Max. It's another movie where it's kind of a random movie that I just came across, and I was like, I've never seen this movie, and I was kind of intrigued, and that's called The World According to Garp. And it stars Robin Williams, and I'm a big Robin Williams fan, so the only reason why I watch this movie is because Robin Williams is in it. And I want to say the second movie he's ever in, because the first movie I believe was Popeye, which was a big Bond movie. I think this is the second movie he kind of starred in at this point. And I want to say, I don't know if this is like getting into the early 80s, probably. This movie, I can't remember when this movie came out, but I want to say maybe early 80s or something like that. It came out. Yeah, this is one I never really heard much about. I've heard the name World According to Garp, and I knew Robin Williams was in it, but I didn't know anything really about the story or whatnot. But I was always interested because I was like, this was the movie that I was like, I'll check it out just to see what Robin Williams is like. Anyway, so it was also the debut of Glenn Close. It was her first movie, so that was kind of interesting to see Glenn Close kind of starting her career here. But it's based off of, I guess, a famous fictional book called The World According to Garp, which Robin Williams plays Garp, the main character, and Glenn Close plays his mother, even though they're not really that far in age. It's one of those things. Glenn Close always plays mothers. Even when she was young, she was always like the mother figure. That was always her thing. But yeah, so it's a weird story. It's a very, very weird story overall. It's it's part comedy, part drama, I guess you can say in there. Definitely a lot of drama in here. You got Robin Williams, so there's slight comedy in there because of him. But it follows like Glenn Close. It's a weird story. She she gets pregnant and has Garp. But the guy that she got pregnant by a soldier who was dying, basically in a hospital, and she was a nurse, and she gets pregnant by this dying soldier. So he dies, and she didn't care about having a husband anyway. She just wanted to get pregnant and have a son. She wanted to know what it was like to have a kid, and so she gets pregnant at the very beginning of the movie, and she and kind of starts with Garp being a baby and kind of growing up. You see a little bit, and then eventually coming Robin Williams when he's basically college age, basically. So Robin Williams looks older than college age, but that's movies. So we kind of follow him in college, and he wants to be a writer. That's his whole thing, is he wants to be a famous writer, and he has a big imagination, anyways, and all this. And he's on the wrestling team, and the wrestling's daughter, he's really attracted to her and wants to date her, basically, and starts flirting with her. And Glenn Close is like almost this like the mother is like doesn't understand love or something like that. She doesn't understand relationships. Like she didn't care about having a relationship with another man. Like she's not interested in being married or having a boyfriend or whatnot. And so she's kind of intrigued by her son's infatuation with this other girl. And she's like, huh, what is that? It's like, she's almost like a robot trying to, study humanity. Like, what is it to love? Like she's a, sociopath that doesn't understand what love is. And so it's kind of interesting dynamic there. Anyways, and Garp is actually, he like cheats on her. He's not really a good person at all. And that was kind of disappointing. Nobody's good. It was all the characters are pretty horrible people, to be honest. And Glenn Close, her character, the mother, she ends up wanting to be a writer after he starts writing some stories that get published. She decides that she wants to be a writer too. So she writes this feminist, very liberal feminist book, and she becomes like this feminist icon. And she becomes famous, and which her son's kind of mad because her son's like, I'm the one that wanted to be a writer. And now my mom's famous for writing this feminist, book. Anyways, but he also becomes a writer and starts getting published. His books are they're critically done well. They're not selling very much like his mom. So he's still kind of down about that he really wants a book that sells well. He ends up marrying this college sweetheart, even though he cheats on her. I mean, it's a terrible marriage, even while they're married. And it's kind of like they love each other. There's some, love in there. And they have kids, and he's very excited to be a father. They have 2 sons, in fact. And he's very much a family man. He loves, spending time with his wife and kids and all that, but he's still cheating on her. So he's still a scumbag. And then she's cheating on him with the college, because she's a college teacher, because she's an English teacher, like in college. And she's starting to have an affair with one of her college students. And so it's like, they're horrible people, like, to me. Like, they're both cheating on each other. And anyways, some horrible stuff happened in the movies, some real tragic stuff. And it's just very sad. Some very sad stuff happened. And you think this marriage isn't going to work, but somehow they survive the marriage, even through all the horrible stuff they do to each other. And not to go into too much detail what happens, but yeah, some bad stuff happened. And yeah, lots of bad stuff happened. And the mother, the Glenn Close character, she runs this institution for women that are abused. And it's weird because there's this society of women that cut their tongues out in protest or something. It's really wild. And then there's this guy who's it's crazy because this is probably made in the 80s, and yet this character, now what's his name? I forget the guy's name, but he plays a transgendered individual who's a professional football player turned into a woman, basically transgendered into a woman. And so a pretty wild character. A lot of really crazy characters throughout this, and like I said, it's just a really weird story. The different twists that it goes into, what happens to the characters in the end, and even that actor, I'm forgetting his name, got nominated for Best Supporting Actor for playing a transgendered person, which I said is way ahead of its time because that wasn't a normal thing that you saw a lot back in the 80s. But yeah, overall, I really didn't like the story at all. Like I said, I hated the characters, hated the story really, and it's a terrible ending. It's a really horrible ending to the story as well. Not a happy ending to the movie, I would say. And so I like happy endings. I like, good story conclusions, and uh, yeah, and I like characters that I like. So it definitely was a movie that I didn't care for. I will say Rob Williams, I think, is still really good in the movie. And it's funny watching because, like I said, this is like his second movie that he's ever starred in, and he's already like so good and so likable, and so not likable maybe, but has so much charisma on screen. I mean, it's hard not to like Robin Williams in a movie because he has such great chemistry and like I said, charisma when he's on screen. And even this movie, I kind of came out going, man, I really like Robin Williams in this movie. Um, and obviously he'd go on to do really great roles after this and get an Oscar win, very deserving. So I was like, it was nice watching Robin Williams, a young Robin Williams, in a second role already like prove himself as a reliable leading actor. So that was really cool to see that. I'd say. Besides that, I would say I would not watch this movie. It was not for me, anyways. Yeah, so I'm giving that not recommend on that. The World According to Garp. All right, I don't have too many movies. I have a couple TV shows and a couple movies to talk about, and I'm gonna be done with this. Um, I'm gonna talk about another documentary I watched recently on Disney Plus called Fire of Love. It was nominated for Best Documentary. Um, all I can say is it's based on this married couple, which I forget their names now, from France, who are experts at volcanoes and volcano eruptions. There's a name for it, like a volcanologist or something like that. Which I didn't even know that was a thing, but there's people out there that study volcanoes evidently, and I didn't know that. Um, but there's this famous couple, and again, I didn't know there's a famous anybody is famous that does this, but there's kind of this somewhat famous, I say, in the community of volcano enthusiasts, I guess, that um, they've been to tons of volcano eruptions. They go to volcanoes that are about to erupt, and I guess they study them or whatever, and they're there and they do all these different experiments. Maybe they're scientists, and so it kind of follows their story as you know, and it's kind of interesting in the fact that there's a guy and a girl that were both huge about volcanoes, and then they got married, and so it was a match made in heaven. I mean, two people how many times are you going to find somebody that is enthusiast of volcanoes, of the opposite sex? That's probably doesn't happen too often. So it's like, yeah, definitely got to marry that person. So yeah, so it's interesting. They're an interesting couple, kind of. And it kind of follows them and their whole career, I guess, and what they've accomplished, I guess. For me, it was a really boring documentary. I guess I just don't care about volcanoes, and I don't care about scientists that study volcanoes. To me, that's a boring subject matter to study. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But I didn't know that until I watched it. I was like, oh, I'm just not into volcanoes. Or I don't really care about volcanoes erupting. Like that doesn't do anything for me. And so it's just a lot of footage. It's obviously a lot of old footage of them. They unfortunately did pass away. They're in Japan, I think, I want to say, a volcano erupted and killed them while they were, studying an eruption. Anyways, but their studies did do some good. It did help further, uh, education on, if there's a volcano erupting, get out of there. And we can by their studies we can tell, I think, maybe when a volcano is going to erupt and like the damage it's going to do. And I think it's helped, with governments, from these countries to say, get your people out of there if this is happening. So in all, like, their studies did a good thing, I guess. Overall, I was just really bored with the movie. All I can say, I was just really bored with it. It's just a subject matter just didn't interest me personally. So I just can give it a not recommend, in my opinion. Unless you're really cool, if you think volcanoes are cool, you're into volcanoes, you might like the movie. But yeah, that's Fire of Love. Um, Another movie I just saw actually the other day, I'll touch on, is a movie called Die Hard, which I think came on Amazon. and it stars Kevin Hart. That's why it's called Die Hard. It's kind of play on words with Die Hard. But this movie where Kevin Hart plays himself, plays Kevin Hart, a movie actor, comedic movie actor, and the whole idea of the movie is that he wants to get into an action movies. He's tired of just being the comedy guy, and he wants to be an action star. And so in the movie, he goes to this action star school, which is trained, or it's led by John Travolta. Plays this guy who trains actors into being action stars. And so he goes into this action star training, whatever. And anyways, it's just there's lots of things that happen that aren't really happening. There's lots of he thinks he's doing something, but it turns out that's all fake. And I don't know. It's definitely a big twist at the end of the movie that kind of negates the rest of the movie. But overall, I thought it was actually a pretty funny movie. It depends if you like Kevin Hart or not. I know a lot of people out there are like, I'm tired of Kevin Hart. I don't think he's that funny. And if you don't think he's funny, then don't watch this movie because it's a lot of his shtick. Um, uh, because he's kind of playing because he's playing himself, so it's kind of a meta role, which is kind of making fun of himself, of course, self-deprecating in a sense. Uh, but I think he's funny. I actually don't mind Kevin Hart. I still think he can be funny in movies, and he does have a funny shtick. His best thing is that he's a great at reacting. I don't know. He has this great face for reactions, and so someone says something, he's just like, he does these, and I'm doing it, but when he does it, it's very funny the way he can react to situations. And that's what makes him kind of a funny actor, and I think he does a good job here. John Travolta is just this crazy character. It's one of the most comedic roles I've seen out of John Travolta. It kind of surprised me. I didn't know John Travolta could be funny, really. I think he's funny in like Grease, and he's done some comedies here and there, but it was kind of funny how he just really kind of went out there in this comedic role. And yeah, he's just kind of an out there character but it was funny. I thought John Travolta did a good job. So overall, I thought it was actually a pretty funny movie, and it wasn't a great movie by any sense, but I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I'd give it a light recommend. Not a great, like I said, not the greatest movie, but I still had enough laughs in there. I would say I would give it a watch. See, on Netflix, there's a good documentary regarding volcanoes called The Volcano Rescue from Macari. Okay, so another volcano movie. Yeah, I heard there's a couple of volcano documentaries out right now. It's one of those things. You can't just make one. There's always like doubles, different stuff like that. But yeah. Anyway, so that's the last movie. I got 2 TV shows I'll cover briefly here, then end the stream. First, The Bad Batch. It's an Star Wars animated movie or show on Disney Plus. This is the second season, just ended. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of this series. I saw the first season. It was one of the first big shows that Star Wars came out with on the platform, and it kind of follows what happens at the end of Clone Wars. It's this group of clones that have defects, but that makes them actually a really strong unit, because they all have different special abilities, basically. And there's this other character named Omega that's like a clone as well that they're trying to protect. And I'm not sure why or what's going on with that character. And it's kind of an annoying character, to be honest, but because it's like a kind of a kid character. But the first season I thought was like okay. There's some interesting stuff there, and we're kind of figuring out what's going on with the Empire, because it happened because the first season takes place right after Order 66, so that's always interesting when you cover Order 66, I think. And so coming to the second season, though, I don't know, I thought it was kind of a boring season, to be honest, and I wasn't that interested in the show at all and where it was going. And it's not a show I really care to go back to. I just kind of watch it just because I watched the first season, so I was like, I'll catch the second season just so it's something to watch on Disney Plus. I'm paying for the service, so I figure I should be watching whatever they're putting out sometimes, just so I'm getting my money's worth. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the second season of The Bad Batch. It's just a ho hum animated series. Not like they did a 6 episodes of this this Jedi show that was really good. And I was like, man, I need more Jedi shows. This is a show about clone troopers, basically. And like, man, I'll go back to watching uh, more animated shows dealing with the Jedi. I think would be really good. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is kind of a big show that ended just recently on HBO called The Last of Us, which is based off of a really popular video game called The Last of Us. This was a big one that I think everybody was anticipating because it's a huge property. It's considered one of the best video games. I've never played the video game, but I've watched YouTube videos of people playing the video game, so I actually know the story, even though I haven't played it. I kind of seen the story play out on other YouTube videos, so I kind of know what's going to happen. So unfortunately, I knew what was going to happen in the show before it happened. So I probably lost some of the interest of the show, and some of the emotional scenes weren't as emotional for me just because I already knew the emotional scenes that were going to happen because of the video game that I've seen played. So that might hurt the show a little bit for me, but yeah, of course, you got Pedro Pascal, who's the most sought after actor, it seems like today, who's in The Mandalorian as well, and he's in this show. He's very popular. He was great on Game of Thrones. I loved him there. So I'm all for Pedro Pascal. Bella Ramsey, I think her name is. She was also in Game of Thrones, and she was good in Game of Thrones. So it was, not a bad choice here. Though I didn't think she was that good in the show, to be honest. As I didn't think she fit that character quite as well from the video game. That's just me. But anyways, so this show was it just ended. I don't know if it was 8 episodes long. Of course, the shows aren't usually that long on HBO. And it covered the whole first video game. There's 2 video games. There's Last of Us 2 as well. But I was disappointed in the fact that they tried to cover the whole video game in one season. I thought it would have been a better choice to take like 3 seasons and try to cover that video game and, really flesh out the different stuff that happens in that video game. And so it felt very rushed. It just felt like you're rushing through the major points sometimes. Sometimes some episodes were just nothing really happened, it felt like. But there are definitely some plot points that happen in the video game that they do in the show. And I don't know, it just felt like, okay, we're going to do this scene in this one episode, and then we're going to do this in this other episode. And yet, I don't know, it just felt very rushed compared to like The Walking Dead. I can compare it to. Like, I think The Walking Dead was much better because I think they took their time with the developing characters and the overall goals of what's going on in the show. And it took many more episodes to get through it, and still had some great zombies, some great zombie kills and all that. Last of Us, if you don't know, of course, it's this kind of post-apocalyptic zombie world where there's like this virus or something. I don't know what you want to call it. It's like a plant-based like virus thing that turns people into zombies, and sometimes into these really, really scary zombies. Um, Anyways, and so the world is like very, the cities are very, isolated and keep people out. And if anybody comes and they've been they got the virus, then you just kill them because you can't, have them in the city. Anyways, and it follows this guy who at the beginning of the movie, at the very very beginning of the show, you kind of see when the outbreak starts happening, and the main character has a daughter. And this is spoilers, but you gotta know this for the story. But anyways, his daughter ends up dying, and so he's very bitter, very he got a lot of anger problems, got a lot of trust issues, of course. And so then it goes into this current day, whatever, where there's this whole society called the Fireflies, and I can't explain that, but it's almost like this terrorist resort. It's almost a governmentless society, but there's definitely still like a military like involved that controls the city, and pretty harsh too. They kill people pretty easily. A lot of yeah, it's almost like a dictatorship or something. I don't know, but anyway, so Joel, the main character Joel, he is given a mission, and he has to take this girl, Ellie, with her. I believe Ellie is her name, yeah. And of course, he doesn't want. And of course, the girl reminds him of his daughter, and that's the whole point of the whole video game and the shows. He doesn't want to have a relationship with this girl because he doesn't want to get close to anybody because they get killed, and then he'd be sad. So there's kind of this relationship between him and this girl. I don't know if she's like 11, 12 years old, whatever she is, 10 years old, and he doesn't really want to get close to her. So, and of course, obviously they're going to get close. That's the whole point of the show or the video game, is that he's eventually going to get close to her, and he's going to become a father figure to her. She's going to be a daughter figure to him. It's that whole kind of thing that goes on. Anyways, and it turns out that she has something about her that she can't get infected. She got bit by a zombie, but she didn't turn into a zombie. So they want to take her to this Firefly facility where they can test her blood or something like that, maybe make a cure so they can cure this disease thing that's turning people into zombies. So that's the whole idea. That's the base of the whole plot, is him trying to get her to this one place, and all these things happen in between, obviously, as he has to travel. Overall, like I said, I was kind of excited because it's actually an interesting story. I think the video game's interesting. The actors are fine. Of course, HBO does great. The set designs are great. The special effects are great. The makeup is great. Got all these cool zombies and everything. So everything's good there. I would say the story is not always interesting. There's some episodes that are very boring, I thought, and the story didn't really go anywhere, or they introduced characters that really don't have anything to do with the rest of the story, so they seem kind of pointless. And so it's slow. There's some episodes that are very slow and didn't go anywhere. And there's some episodes that are a little more exciting. There's a little more stuff going on. I think one of the major problems of the show is that there wasn't enough zombies attacks. Like that was the best thing about Walking Dead, is that every once in a while you get attacked by zombies and you have to get out of the situation. And there's a couple of scenes like that. And those are actually probably the most interesting scenes in the whole show, is when they get attacked by zombies. And so for me, I was like, I wanted more zombie scenes. I think I could have used more to make it a little more thrilling, a little more exciting. The other thing is, I thought Ellie was such an annoying character played by Bella Ramsey. I thought she was more likable in the video game. Maybe I'm crazy. Again, I haven't played the video game, so maybe I don't know. Was she annoying in the video game too? I didn't think she was that annoying, but I found her to be just such an annoying little brat. Just a real brat character that I couldn't like or care about. And I don't think they did a good job at really making that relationship really work, where it felt like they were starting to warm up to each other. They really hate each other at first. And as the show was going on, I still felt like, oh, they're not really gelling yet. And I'm not really feeling this chemistry between them. And then in the very last episode, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's this chemistry between them, and he cares about her like a daughter. And so that felt like it was very rushed or something, or it just didn't feel like it came natural. It just kind of suddenly happened to me. And like I said, I think it's because that character was just so annoying. Like I couldn't love that character either. If I was Joel, I would have a hard time, warming up to the Ellie character. But maybe that's just me, and my hate for brat kids. Even though I don't have any kids myself, I see kids sometimes and I go, man, that's a brat kid. I do not want that kid around. Anyways, yeah, so that's my major thing, is like I didn't think they did as good a job as a video game in developing that relationship, I thought. And all that. I will say the very last episode of the season, which is the very last scene in the video game, was done very well. And I thought it was a really good final show. So I thought they did a good job there, where I really, like I said, I did actually start feeling the relationship between the two. And I kind of got this, oh yeah, okay, I kind of get them now. There's something there between the two. There's just the father-daughter relationship thing that's really working. So I felt like it took too long for me to kind of believe in that relationship, but they did do a good job in that last episode, where I totally get what Joel was doing and his motivation made sense. So I'll say that they did a really good job with the finale and the way they shot it, and very emotional and all this. And it's a great twist ending, kind of, I say twist, some of a twist ending to it, but I already knew it because I saw the video game. So if I didn't see the video game, I think it would have shocked me a little bit or surprised me a little more. So that was done very well. But overall, it was just a meh show. It's not. It doesn't get me excited to watch another season of it, to be honest. And I don't think I'll probably watch another season of it. It's not the worst show, but it's not a show that's going to make it in my top 10. Probably it's not going to make it into my bottom 10. Just kind of in the middle as far as the show goes. Anyway, that's my feeling on it. I know a lot of people love the show, so I might be a little more. Elliot from IMO Reviews, I agree with him. If you ever see his reviews on it, I pretty much agree with everything he says in his, and I think we kind of run. I think we both kind of agree a lot on the show. But I know some people like Jamie Lee love the show, and others are more enthusiasts of the show. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a little more negative about it. But again, it's just one top tier type of show for me. See, Abby, I love the show. I just thought there would be more interaction with zombies. That's what I'm saying. I want more zombies, like in Walking Dead. I think it did it better, anyways. But yeah. Anyway, so that's the last thing I'm going to cover on my movies and TV shows that I've been watching recently. Thank you to everybody in the comment section for making comments, and yeah, love interacting with everybody. Thank you to anybody that watches this afterwards and makes any kind of comment. Love to read them. What are your thoughts on these movies and TV shows that I've seen lately? Love to hear your thoughts on them. And yeah, it's Sunday, so new week coming up. Just hope everybody has a really good week, and I will talk to you later.